Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums in the co-captains chairs today. Rich, Catino, and Bryce from Bryce Talks Metal. Welcome, gentlemen, for this little discussion here and ranking top 5 albums of Gravedigger. So again, this is another one of those bands that I have listened to very little over the years. So we've had a lot of people ask for Gravedigger. I know Rich is a big fan. I found out Bryce is a big fan. So I said, let's let these two guys do their top 5 albums from the Gravedigger discography. And Rich, I don't know if you want to give a little kind of introduction to folks about Gravedigger for those people who are not that familiar with them.
Okay. Well, if you're not familiar with them, they didn't start out as a power metal band. They were speed metal, that German speed metal, like Old Running Wild type of thing. Heavy metal breakdown, Witch Hunter, War Games, and then they did an album called Stronger Than Ever under the name Digger, without the grave on it, and they tried to go a little more melodic, like a hair metal album, but it didn't work that very well. So it's not really considered part of the Gravedigger history, but the first 3 are very, old school 80s rough sounding type of speed metal.
Yeah.
This is the classic Heavy Metal Breakdown. That's the first one that a lot of people know, the song Heavy Metal Breakdown. That's become one of their big anthems. And then Witch Hunter is another song that a lot of people know too. That's another, I guess you could say, considered some semi-hit. War Games, I don't think too many people know that album too well. That's the third one. They had a song called Paradise on that, which was cool, kind of catchy. But the first 3 albums, Chris's voice is very rough. It takes getting used to. If you don't like his voice, it's kind of like Udo-ish, kind of like Udo, a little bit of maybe Lemmy, but he's got a unique tone to it and a texture to it that doesn't sound like those other 2 guys. But it's kind of in that family,
Yeah,
when those first 2 albums came out, he's totally unique, right?
Yeah. When those first 2 albums came out, I remember myself and some of the people I knew who went out and bought those. His vocal style was hit or miss with some.
Yeah.
No, the music was very, very cool, but they really evolved their sound over the years. So those first couple albums don't really sound like this. Yeah.
So the first 3 are your traditional old school 80s
speed metal. Yep.
Speed metal. That's there's nothing really outside of that. They didn't really branch out yet. It wasn't until 96 when you get the Tunes of War where they started working in the power metal hymns and anthems and historical topics with their lyrics, incorporating bagpipes, which you can see the Reaper playing on there on that album. So that's where they really got into their power metal mode. But before that, when you go from Heavy Metal Breakdown up to 95, which is Heart of Darkness, that's where it's your traditional heavy metal, speed metal stuff going on, which is good. It's a cool era, but Gravedigger has a couple, different sides to them. They have their speed metal, traditional metal, and then they have their power metal side too.
Sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool.
See, I thought those first 3 albums definitely have more Motorhead and Exciter feel to them with Judas Priest and Accept. And then when it got to the 90s, there was still that on the Reaper and Heart of Darkness, but big heavy riffs, fast speed metal stuff. But with the choruses, I think they started to go a little bit more power metal, a tad on those. And then the mid 90s, they went more and more power metal.
If you want a cool album to check out, they have this album called Exumation, where they re-recorded songs from those first 3 albums. And this gives you a lot of cool songs from those 3 if you want a good overview of what early Gravedigger's like. You got Headbanging Man, Fire in the Eyes, Witch Hunter, Shoot Her Down, Stand Up and Rock, Heavy Metal Breakdown, We Want to Rock You. So there's a lot of great songs on this. If you want to become familiar with older Gravedigger, they're just re-recorded, but still sounds great. Sounds just like the original arrangements.
It's amazing how many bands have done stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was also going to say Chris, the singer, Bolton Doll, he's the only constant member from the beginning. He's been the singer on every album. They've had a lot of different guitar players, and all of them are good. First guy, Peter Mason, was awesome, and then they had Uwe Lulis. I don't know if we're pronouncing that right, but the guy he's in Accept now, great guitar player, and then a guy named Manny Schmidt.
I'm sorry, Bryce. He was there from, we were saying the Reaper, right, up to Excalibur, right?
Yeah, and he joined the band right after Peter Mason left, and they switched their name to Digger. He was on that album, and then they switched their name to Hawaii in the late 80s, and then back to Gravedigger.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And they
So,
have what, 19 albums, 18, 19 albums?
yeah, a lot.
Yeah. A lot
I'm
of
counting correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
A lot of stuff. So they have both ranked their top 5, and we'll have Bryce kick us off with his number 5.
Cool. So my number 5, I'm going to go with War Games from '86. Now that's their third album, as we talked about just a second ago. And with this one, at moments you can kind of tell they're leaning towards, the '80s like glam on some. Like there's a ballad on there called "Love Is Breaking My Heart." It's got like it's a piano ballad, slow, but there's a really nice melodic guitar solo, which is really cool. But there is still some really fast moments on it, big heavy riffs as well, like on the song I wrote down. We got Heaven Can Wait. Love that riff. Big heavy one. Keep on Rocking, really fast one, kind of speed metal-ish. But even though they started to lean a little bit more towards the glam on moments on here, I still think it's great classic speed metal for the most part. So that's my number 5, War Games.
Cool. All right. My 5 is the debut, Heavy Metal Breakdown. Still like this album a lot. And there's even a balladist-esque kind of song on there too, Yesterday, which is kind of like a ballad. But everything else is pretty heavy, straight ahead, traditional metal, speed metal. Headbanging Man, Heavy Metal Breakdown. Back from the War is great. I really like that one. We Want to Rock You is another great anthem. Legion of the Lost is pretty dark and spooky sounding. Tyrant, 2,000 Years, Light Years from Home is a Rolling Stone song.
Yeah.
They covered on this album. And Heart Attack. So you got 9 songs on this album. It's very enjoyable. It's a great start. I still like this album.
Cool. So my number 4, I'm going to go with Witch Hunter from '85, their second album. Again, great classic stuff. You mentioned a cover on that first album. They do a cover on this one of School's Out, which is done really well, I think.
Right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great cover. The title track is awesome. Great classic stuff. Get Away, Fight for Freedom, Here I Stand, a couple of the other standouts I wrote down, but of course, great classic stuff. And yeah, it's my number 4.
And there's a couple of those songs on Exumation as well that they re-recorded. All right. We're at 4. So I'm going with Heart of Darkness from '95. So it's still your rough speed metal, traditional metal, but they're incorporating a little more melody, I think, into this. I really like the way the album begins and ends. I'm sorry, it begins. I'm thinking of the Reaper, because the Reaper has an intro and an outro that really sets a good tone for the album. This one has Tears of Madness, which is another intro, which is really cool. It sets a nice tone for the album. And then you got the Grave Dancer on this and Demon's Day, nice slow mid-tempo, kind of like Accept, pounders, I guess you would call them, just fist pounding metal type of thing, but not too fast, not too slow. Hate is pretty fast and heavy. Circle Witches was a video. If you didn't know that, they made a video for that, which is out there. That's a cool song at 7 minutes. And then Heart of Darkness is 11 minutes long. Nice epic song. That really shows what they were going into actually as they go forward when you listen to the song Heart of Darkness, because they would get into more epic arrangements with the next few albums. So I really like this album a lot.
Yeah, that's a great one for sure.
Fantastic album covers in this catalog.
Yeah, they have great album covers. Very
for sure. Cool. Yeah, some of the best.
Yeah.
And cool. So my number 3, and this is my favorite album cover by them, The Gravedigger from 2001. Just think it's a badass album cover. It looks super cool. And yep.
Love the Gravedigger.
Oh yeah, big heavy riffs. It's their first with Manny Schmidt. So Uwe Lulis. I don't know if that's, again, pronouncing his name wrong, but he left the band. They got Manny. He was a great guitarist in the band. A lot of awesome.
Actually, I'm sorry, Bryce. He came from Rage, the band Rage, the German band.
Okay.
He was in that band also.
Nice. Yeah, I think I did. I remember seeing that. But yeah, the title track is awesome. Scythe of Time, Spirits of the Dead, King Pest. The riff, I wrote down the riff and the bridge of that song between the chorus and the solo is just amazing. And then the guitar solo is great. But yeah, top to bottom, that's a really great one. Really heavy and dark. Maybe their darkest album. I read that some of the lyrical themes were inspired by like Edgar Allan Poe poetry on that album. So yeah, really great one. So that's my number 3.
Which, interestingly enough, that album came out after they did the Middle Ages trilogy,
Mhm.
where they're getting into their historical lyrics for those 3 albums. So Gravedigger does go back and forth between historical topics and more of the horror storytelling as well, which they went back to on the Gravedigger. But if you're looking for more of the power metal and the historical things, that's a great set if you get those 3 together. Middle Ages trilogy. All right, 3, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to where they went back to their historical stuff after the Gravedigger. I'm going to Rheingold from 2003, another great album cover. And this album has Rheingold, Valhalla, Giants, Maidens of War, another song which shows more of their melody in their song. Dragon, Twilight of the Gods is one of my favorite type of epic songs that they do. 10 songs on this album. I think this is really, really solid, great representation of the power metal side of Gravedigger with still a little bit of that, the Reaper and the Heart of Darkness put into their songs too, I think. But this is still more in that power metal style.
Yeah.
Especially with songs like, Rheingold and the song like Valhalla, and Maidens of War. So you're getting into your fantasy topics, the creative storytelling, which is cool. That's what they do great.
Yeah, that is a really good album. I was going to say, like, on the song Valhalla, even though it's like more power metal in the choruses and all, like there's still like big, huge, heavy riffs, like Judas Priest style riffs. Yeah, really heavy. They remind me of like Primal Fear a little bit. Like you got the big, heavy riffs and blending like the power metal style. So
yeah, and what's cool about them too, if you see them live, the Reaper actually comes out on stage and he plays the keyboards.
Nice.
So he's always somewhere on stage playing the keys. It's pretty cool.
Sweet. So my number 2, I'm going to go with one you already mentioned, Heart of Darkness. Great album from 95. And you mentioned the music video Circle of Witches. I think that's the first song I heard from them. Saw it on like Metal Mania one night. I thought it was just badass, epic. The guitar solo and then the riff, like right after the guitar solo, is just amazing. And then Chris does that scream. Super cool. Looking at some of these other songs that I've got written down as standouts, I would go with probably Shadowmaker, The Grave Dancer. That one reminds me of like, I'd say like a heavy AC/DC song, except just nice steady riff, big heavy one. But yeah, top to bottom, this is a really solid album. So up high for me at number 2.
It was hard for me to choose between that and the Reaper because they're both great albums. They're 2 years apart and they're part of that darker era of Gravedigger with their lyrics and the music, more horror themes and things like that. Just, if you don't listen to Hard Darkness, go to the Reaper. Either one, it's a win. Both great. All right. So my next one, number 2, is the Gravedigger, where we were saying before, you're going back to their darker lyrics, more horror inspired. A lot of Edgar Allan Poe on this. I don't skip a track on this album. Son of Evil, The Gravedigger, Raven, Scythe of Time, Spirits of the Dead. The House is really spooky sounding. I like the way it kind of has the melodic part in the verses and then it kicks in with the riff for the chorus. King Pest is really fast and heavy. Funeral Procession, Haunted Palace. We got the Haunted Palace on the back of the book here, on the back of the CD here. So yeah, I love this album. Saw them for this tour too when they played America. They came here for was that this album? No, after that. They did it for Rheingold. They were here for Rheingold when they played the Brave Words Festival. And I got to see them. And they did a couple songs off of this album.
Nice.
So, and there's the Reaper again with the band. It's cool how they always incorporate him in a shot. He's always somewhere. Kind of like how Iron Maiden used to do. You remember the Maiden covers?
Yep.
They used to have the Reaper someplace in the artwork. They do it with Gravedigger too. So I love this album. I like going back and forth between the more historical and power metal side of Gravedigger and then going back to the more traditional metal and the speed metal of the 80s and the Heart of Darkness and the Reaper from the early 90s.
Cool. So my number 1, I'm going to go with the Reaper from 93. Just this one, I think, is the most consistent, the one I enjoy the most. The lineup on it is awesome. Uwe's guitar playing is fantastic. They had George Michael on this album playing drums, and he's a freaking beast of a drummer. Just I gotta say, he's got like the most impressive resume I've ever seen. Looking through all the different bands he's been with, we got Mekong Delta, Rage, Saxon, Axel Rudy Pell, Headhunter, which was the band that Schmier formed after he left Destruction there. Stradivarius running wild. So he's been all around, amazing drummer, but top to bottom, this is a super consistent album. Probably I would go with Under My Flag. That's one of my favorite ooey guitar solos, one of my favorite songs by them, just in general. And top to bottom, great album. Ride On is amazing, and all the songs fantastic. So that is my number one, The Reaper.
That album has a great intro and outro for the whole album. The tribute to death before it goes into The Reaper, and then you have The Madness Continues, which is the outro for the album. Really bookends that album really cool, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that just a tribute to death, the music and the spoken word that's over it. When you listen to the album, it opens it up. Excellent. All right, number one is Tunes of War, going back to the historical topics and the power metal of Gravedigger. So this is the first of, what's that?
You got the bagpipes there, I see.
Yeah. Yep, and they do this on a lot of albums following this album too. They pull that in a lot. So this is the first of this Middle Ages trilogy, which, like I said, comes in this set, which is cool, with Excalibur and Knights of the Cross. Excalibur is another, that would be one of my honorable mentions, I would say. Another great album. So this is about Braveheart, this story, William Wallace. That's what this album's about. And they do a lot of concept albums too going forward after this one. So this one is down on here, so I could read the titles here. Rebellion is one of their anthems. They play it all the time live. That was a big hit for them. Scotland United, The Dark of the Sun, The Bruce, The Battle of Flodden, The Ballad of Mary is a really cool ballad. Gravedigger doesn't do too many ballads, but when they do them, they do it really well. And Chris's voice is much more melodic on it too. Much more of a cleaner delivery instead of the rough, gravelly type of thing that he does a lot. But they do that for the choruses too. If you ever listen to Gravedigger, their choruses are sometimes more melodic than the verses, I would say. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Bryce, probably?
Yeah, for sure.
I would say sometimes it's rough too. He still keeps the gravel in the voice, but sometimes like a ballad like The Ballad of Mary, it's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Killing Time is great riff, and it's catchy. Yep. Tunes of War.
Nice.
It set the standard for what they were going to be doing going forward. That, I guess that's why this is my number one. This is my number two, because this is great for what they did going forward with their power metal, and this is good because they brought back what they did with their older early 90s 80s style with the speed metal and the traditional metal. So didn't think of it until now, but that's why they're up there. And I mixed it up between that and going back to Rheingold and then Heart of Darkness. You know, I like both sides, both eras of Gravedigger.
Yeah, and I'll just say the two that were like my next two, I'd go with Heavy Metal Breakdown and Rheingold. But there's a super consistent band. Most of their albums are awesome. So
yeah, I think I want to go experiment some of the middle part of this catalog, because like I said, I've only really heard the very early stuff, and I've heard some of the more recent stuff. There's a whole gap here in the middle that, yeah, like those albums, they sound very intriguing to me.
You like these three.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one, Fields of Blood, is part of this as well. Continues part of the story. So that's another cool album as far as story-wise. Connects the past albums too.
Cool.
Which came out in 2020, last year. Fields of Blood's a great album too.
Yeah, I also really like Healed by Metal 2017. This was the first album I got by them. I guess I just picked it up when it was new, and that's when I pretty much started listening to them around 2016, 2017. So
yeah, that's
and Return of the Reaper is great too. If you want to go back to the Heart of Darkness and the Reaper, get the Return of the Reaper, which came out in, when was that?
2014.
2014, which is really cool. It goes into the darker and the more horror topics and their older style from the 80s and the early 90s. But songs like Tattooed Rider is so catchy, and Season of the Witch and Hell Funeral, which is like a opening. They do a lot of fast openers from time to time. So there's that. There's Dia de Los Muertos, which is also catchy. It's got a lot of great cowbell in it. Another cool album. Like I said, it's tough because you got to go back and forth. What do you like? Do you like the power metal, or do you like the speed metal, traditional metal? You know, they mix it up from album to album.
Cool.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to investigate here, I think. So
20 albums, actually. I thought it was like 17 or 18 or 20.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. They've been busy.
Yeah.
So for everybody watching in the comments below, please rank your favorite Gravedigger albums. You want to do your top 5, top 10, or if you're feeling frisky, tackle the whole catalog, all 20 of them. So I want to thank Bryce and Rich for doing the rankings for us here today.
Thanks,
I've got
guys.
some homework to do. I'm going to investigate this catalog a little bit further. We said on the Running Wild show, it's Gravediggers is another one of those bands that I listened to them really early on, and then just there's so many bands to listen to, and you can't check everything out, and before you know it, 30 years have gone by and they've released all these albums. I've heard a couple of the more recent ones, but so yeah, I'm definitely going to go check out some more stuff in this catalog. So thanks for the recommendations, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Bryce, what's going on over on your neck of the woods on Bryce Talks Metal?
Just the typical top 10s. I just put out a top 10 EPs list yesterday. I did an interview with Sean Drover about 3-4 days ago, a week ago. So if anybody wants to go check out that stuff, and I'll keep on with the top 10s, try to do some more interviews coming up soon. So
cool.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.
You got it. So just in case you guys missed it, both myself and Chris Allo have appeared on Bryce's channel as of the last 2 weeks. So if you missed either one of those episodes, Bryce and I talked about our favorite heavy metal singers, and Chris and Bryce talked about their very interesting show, their favorite top 10 songs featuring Tony Martin on vocals, which is pretty cool.
And I'll mention, I've got Nick Franco coming back on to do top 10 of 2003, top 10 albums of 2003 pretty soon. Cool. So yeah.
There you go. And Rich, any latest reviews over on Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles as of late?
The Halloween, and I think I got a couple more things I got to submit there, and I'll put a couple things up for Metal Asylum too, because I'm always busy writing, so catching up on that.
Cool. And Rich will be joining myself and Chris Allo in a week and a half. On the Monsters Den, we are going to be ranking our top 5 favorite films directed by Stuart Gordon. So for all of you fans of Reanimator and From Beyond and all that kind of stuff, do not miss this show. So stay tuned for that and a lot more here on the channel. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Bryce and Rich, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow with the Hudson Valley Squares. Take care. Bye-bye.